September 18, 1943, Camp Hearn, Texas. Hauptmann Wilhelm Krause dropped his mess tray, sending fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans clattering across the floor. The Afrika Korps veteran who had survived 2 years of desert warfare stood paralyzed, not from the crash, but from what he saw next. The American mess sergeant immediately prepared him another full plate, muttering only mild irritation at the waste. No punishment, no reduction in rations, just another complete meal to replace the one destroyed. In Germany, dropping food meant starvation for days. Here, in an enemy prison camp, abundance was so absolute that waste brought only replacement. Across the mess hall, 500 German prisoners watched this scene unfold. Veterans who had subsisted on sawdust bread and turnip soup witnessed their captors casually discard more food than their families had seen in years. What began as confusion would evolve into rage, not at their captors, but at their own leadership, who had promised victory while hiding America's impossible abundance. Across 500 American prison camps, 371,683 German POWs would confront a reality that systematically demolished everything they believed about American weakness, German superiority, and the war itself. The mathematics of defeat were being calculated not in battles lost, but in calories consumed, medicines administered, and dignity preserved. The transformation had begun months earlier in the scorching sands of Tunisia. In May 1943, the Afrika Korps, Germany's elite desert force, surrendered, along with 275,000 Axis soldiers. These men, who had pushed the British to the gates of Cairo, who had earned Rommel the title Desert Fox, expected brutal treatment from their American captors. Nazi propaganda had been explicit. Americans were mongrels who tortured prisoners, starved them, worked them to death. Instead, within hours of surrender, medics were treating German wounded with the same urgency as American casualties. Obergefreiter Hans Müller, captured with the 21st Panzer Division, documented his first American meal in a letter that survived in military archives. "They gave us white bread. I had forgotten such bread existed. Real coffee with sugar and milk. Beef stew with actual meat you could identify. We thought it was a propaganda show, that after the Red Cross left, the real treatment would begin. It never did. This was their standard food." The journey to America aboard Liberty ships provided the second wave of psychological impact. These vessels, mass-produced at a rate that defied German industrial comprehension, carried POWs across the Atlantic in conditions that exceeded what many had known as civilians. Unteroffizier Friedrich Becker of the 90th Light Division kept a hidden diary throughout his captivity. His entry from July 1943 reads, "The ship has ice boxes that keep food fresh. The Americans eat meat twice daily, even at sea. They throw away more food after each meal than my unit received in a week. When I asked a guard why they waste so much, he shrugged and said, 'There's always more where that came from.'" But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared them for the camps themselves. Camp Hearn, Texas, typical of the larger facilities, housed 4,800 German prisoners in conditions that mocked everything they'd been told about American capabilities. Electric lights in every barrack, indoor flush toilets, hot water showers, steam heating, recreational facilities, and the food, impossibly. The food got even better. The daily ration scale authorized by the War Department for enemy prisoners matched what American troops received: 4,300 calories per day, including fresh meat, vegetables, dairy, eggs, and white bread. Feldwebel Kurt Wagner, a former butcher from Hamburg, worked in the camp kitchen. He later testified, "We prepared 14,000 meals daily. Each prisoner received a half pound of meat, unlimited bread, butter, jam, coffee with real cream. On Sundays, we served roast beef or fried chicken. We threw away more edible food each day than a German infantry company saw in a month. The numbers told a story that no propaganda could refute. Camp Hearn's monthly requisitions for October 1943 included 62,000 pounds of meat, 93,000 pounds of potatoes, 31,000 loaves of bread, 15,500 dozen eggs, 7,150 gallons of milk, 3,100 pounds of butter, and 6,200 pounds of coffee. For enemies, for men who months earlier had been killing Americans in Tunisia, the medical facilities delivered another devastating blow to Nazi ideology. The camp hospital at Hearn contained X-ray machines, surgical suites, dental chairs, and a pharmacy stocked with medicines that had vanished from Germany years earlier. Most shocking was penicillin, the miracle drug that remained largely unavailable to German forces. Stabsarzt Dr. Heinrich Zimmermann, captured in Sicily, worked in the camp hospital. His post-war memoir described the experience. American doctors used penicillin on German prisoners with minor infections. In the Wehrmacht, men died from infected wounds because we had no antibiotics. Here, enemies received the most advanced medicine in the world without hesitation. When I protested that it should be saved for Americans, the doctor laughed and showed me their supply room. They had more penicillin than we had aspirin. The Camp Post-Exchange, or PX, introduced prisoners to American consumer abundance. Using wages earned from labor, 80 cents per day, POWs could purchase Coca-Cola for 5 cents, candy bars for the same price, cigarettes, magazines, toiletries, and even beer. The variety stupefied men accustomed to empty German shops. Gefreiter Joseph Hartmann wrote to his family, "The camp store has 30 types of cigarettes, a dozen candy bars, things called comic books, razors, soap that smells like flowers. This is a prison store. What must their civilian shops contain?" Christmas 1943 provided the most profound psychological shock. American organizations sent 500,000 Christmas packages to German POWs. Churches, civic groups, and individual families contributed gifts to enemy soldiers. At Camp Hearn, the American Legion Auxiliary delivered 4,800 individually wrapped presents. Local women baked cookies and cakes. The Boy Scouts made Christmas cards. The menu for December 25th included roast turkey with stuffing, ham, mashed potatoes, gravy, cranberry sauce, vegetables, mince pie, pumpkin pie, ice cream, candy, and nuts. Unteroffizier Paul Schmidt wrote in his diary, "They know we are enemies. Their sons and husbands fight against our armies. Yet they send us gifts, real gifts, not propaganda." The local priest conducted Christmas Mass in German. American families invited us to dinner, though regulations prevented our accepting. This kindness toward enemies, it broke something in me. What kind of people treat prisoners this way? Only those so strong they have nothing to fear. The contrast with German rations became unbearable. Letters from home, when they arrived, spoke of turnip winters, sawdust bread, and monthly meat rations of 300 grams when available. Mothers wrote of saving their rations to feed children. Wives described soup made from potato peels. Meanwhile, German POWs in America gained weight. Medical examinations showed the average prisoner gained 15 pounds during captivity. By spring 1944, labor programs exposed prisoners to American civilian abundance. Working on farms and in factories, POWs witnessed the source of American plenty. Obergefreiter Franz Weber worked on a dairy farm outside Houston. His smuggled notes record, "The farm has 300 cows, each producing more milk than an entire German village sees. Electric milking machines, refrigerated storage, daily truck pickups. The farmer owns 2 cars, a truck, 3 tractors. His house has electric lights, running water, a refrigerator, and a radio in every room. He is not rich, just a farmer. Every farm we pass is the same. The wheat harvest of 1944 delivered another crushing revelation. German prisoners worked across Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma, witnessing agricultural production that could feed continents. Unteroffizier Hermann Schultz wrote, "One American farm produced more wheat than my entire district in Bavaria. They have machines that harvest 100 acres per day. The grain elevators hold more wheat than Germany imports in a year. They showed us aerial photographs, endless fields of grain stretching to the horizon. The guards said this was just one state, that there were 48 states. The mathematics of their victory became clear. The camp educational programs added intellectual insult to physical evidence. Stanford and Harvard professors lectured on democracy and economics. The camp library contained thousands of books, magazines in multiple languages, and technical journals. Prisoners could take correspondence courses from American universities. Oberleutnant Erich Hoffmann, an engineer before the war, enrolled in advanced mathematics courses. He later wrote, "They educated their enemies. Real education, not propaganda. American professors, including Jewish refugees from Germany, taught us without hatred." The library had books banned in Germany, books we could be shot for possessing. Yet here, as prisoners, we read freely. Perhaps most devastating was American self-criticism. The camp movie theater showed Hollywood films including The Grapes of Wrath, depicting American poverty during the Depression. German prisoners couldn't understand why Americans would show weakness to enemies. Hauptmann Friedrich Müller wrote, "They hide nothing. They show their failures, their problems, their conflicts. In Germany, this would be treason. Here, it's entertainment. This honesty reveals strength we never understood." The treatment of Italian prisoners after Italy's surrender in September 1943 exposed another crack in Nazi ideology. Italian POWs who cooperated received better quarters, higher wages, and more freedom. Some worked in American restaurants and shops. Others dated American women. German prisoners watched their former allies prospering while they remained behind wire. The message was clear. Cooperation brought rewards. Continued resistance meant continued imprisonment. By summer 1944, the psychological transformation was measurable. Camp newspapers, published by prisoners themselves, shifted from defiant nationalism to discussions of reconstruction. Der Ruf circulated among camps, published articles about democratic governance, market economics, and agricultural reform. The readership was eager. Prisoners who had arrived as convinced Nazis were writing essays about implementing American methods in post-war Germany. The secret re-education program, managed by the Provost Marshal General's office, documented remarkable changes. Lieutenant Colonel Edward Davison reported in August 1944, "The prisoners no longer dispute American production statistics. They have seen too much. Requests for English language courses exceed our teaching capacity." Many prisoners expressed desire to remain in America after the war. The most fanatical Nazis have gone silent. They maintain no hope of victory. D-Day's success in June 1944 delivered the final blow. When newsreels showed the invasion's scale, 6,000 ships, 11,000 aircraft, 150,000 men in the first wave, German prisoners understood the mathematical impossibility of victory. Gefreiter Wilhelm Bauer wrote, "They showed us films of the landing craft, endless streams of ships. In one day, they landed more equipment than Germany produced in a month. We knew then that everything was finished." The revelation of concentration camps in 1945 completed the ideological demolition. When American forces liberated Buchenwald and Dachau, the footage was shown to German POWs. Many initially refused to believe it, claiming propaganda. But testimony from American soldiers, photographs, and eventually letters from Germany confirmed the horror. The psychological impact was shattering. Men who had maintained some pride in German honor faced complete moral collapse. Feldwebel Otto Richter's diary captures the moment. "We thought we were soldiers fighting for our homeland. We discover we were tools of murderers. The Americans we called weak and degenerate were liberating camps where Germans acted as beasts. They fed us, their enemies, better than we fed our own prisoners. They gave us medical care, while we gave others death. The shame is unbearable." Between 1945 and 1946, 371,683 German POWs were repatriated to a destroyed homeland. They returned to cities in ruins, families starving, and economy collapsed. But they brought knowledge of how societies could be rebuilt. They had witnessed industrial democracy functioning at peak efficiency. They understood that prosperity came from production, not conquest. Many former POWs rose to prominence in West Germany's reconstruction. Hans Speidel, prisoner at Camp Opelika, became NATO commander. Franz Josef Strauss, influenced by returning POWs, helped build Germany's economic miracle. Thousands of former prisoners returned to America as immigrants in the 1950s, seeking the abundance they had witnessed as captives. The statistics of transformation tell an extraordinary story. Of 371,683 German POWs held in America, only 0.6% attempted escape. Post-war surveys showed 74% believed their captivity positively changed their worldview. Over 40,000 enrolled in democratic education courses. 135 camp newspapers promoted reconstruction rather than resistance. Less than 10% maintained strong Nazi beliefs by war's end. At the 40th anniversary POW reunion in 1985, former Obergefreiter Hans Müller delivered the keynote address. "We arrived as enemies, convinced of our superiority. We left as friends, aware of our delusions. America showed us that strength comes not from racial mythology, but from human dignity. Not from conquest, but from creation. Not from hatred, but from abundance, shared even with enemies. We witnessed democracy's ultimate weapon, the ability to transform foes into friends through overwhelming evidence of a better way." The German POWs who couldn't believe what Americans fed enemy prisoners learned that democracy's greatest strength wasn't its armies, but its ability to maintain humanity even toward enemies. They returned to Germany not as defeated soldiers, but as witnesses to possibility, carrying the revolutionary message that prosperity came from freedom, that abundance could be democratic, that enemies could be transformed through dignity rather than destroyed through hatred. The camps that were meant to imprison bodies instead liberated minds. The food meant to sustain life instead transformed worldviews. The medicine meant to heal wounds instead cured ideological poison. What German soldiers saw in American POW camps, ice cream and antibiotics, dignity and democracy, changed them forever. They had tasted freedom, and it was sweet. They had experienced democracy, and it was abundant. They had witnessed humanity, and it was powerful. In the end, America's greatest victory wasn't on battlefields, but in prison camps, where the simple act of feeding enemies well accomplished what weapons never could, the complete transformation of hearts and minds. The German soldiers who couldn't believe their treatment became democracy's most unlikely ambassadors, forever changed by the impossible reality of American abundance shared even with those who had come to destroy it.